Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. First off, I want to thank everyone for coming out to this candidate forum. And I want to also thank the McDonald's in town. They provided coffee, which isn't here yet, but will be shortly, and it'll be out back just in the lobby area for those that want to or need some coffee. Just briefly on the rules, in relation to your questions, the questions should be limited to 1 minute in length. Try to keep them short if you can. They must be more general in nature, not directed at any one candidate. Any question that's asked is going to be answered by each of the candidates. No supplementary questions. Once you've asked, when you ask your question, they will answer it. If you have something that's a follow-up or something of that nature, you'll have to go to the back of the line and carry on from there. Council candidates will have 1 minute to answer questions, and the mayoral candidates will have 2 minutes to answer their questions. So, what we'll do at this point is have the candidates, I'm going to get them to introduce themselves, and then they'll have 1 minute to, at the same time, once they introduce themselves, they'll have a minute to make a statement of, I guess, whatever nature they want to make. And once we've gone through all of the candidates, then we will work and open into questions. There are 2 mics, one on either side of the room, and the mics are turned off. So when you come up to ask a question, please turn it on, ask the question, then turn it off afterwards. Apparently, we want to avoid any sort of feedback or squelching if we can. With that, I'm going to start on my very far left, if I can. And sorry about that. Wait till they move the microphones down that way. Okay. So on the very far left, I will allow the candidate to introduce themselves and give their 1 minute opening statement.
My name is Elise Moss. I moved to Kindersley. Sorry. My name is Elise Moss. I moved to Kindersley 20 years ago with my family and have resided here for the majority of the years since. Since then, my husband and I have decided to make Kindersley our home. We are raising our 2 daughters here. We both work for local companies, and we both own and operate our own local businesses. I believe that community participation and involvement are big keys to the community success. I am currently a volunteer at large. I'm a committee member of the Kindersley Communities in Bloom, the Children's Wish Walk, and the vice chair for the Friends of the Kinsman Park. We need to concentrate on being a sustainable, vibrant, and strong community of 4,700. We need to focus on operational efficiencies. We need to focus on operational efficiencies and sustainability, improving our current infrastructure and services without compromising meeting our needs today without compromising our future. Sorry.
Thank you. Next person in line. Sorry, I can't see everybody, so I'm not going to announce their name. I'm just going to allow you to pass the mic and move down from there.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Sean Henry. I'm the manager at the credit union here in town. I was on council and got in on a by-election in February 2014. Since then, in January, when our previous mayor left, I stepped in and have been acting mayor since that time, since January. We do a lot with the council, and I guess as far as changes and whatnot, I wouldn't make a ton of changes as far as what we're doing. I've been a part of the council that hasn't had really any tax increases in the last little while, and with the economy, I guess that's one thing that we would want to try and maintain to create that sustainability. There's numerous things on the docket, so to say that I want to promise you a pool and a fire hall and a lagoon and a landfill, I think I'm talking pipe dreams. So we'll continue to do the best we do with the money that we got without trying to increase the taxes too much. and make those choices. And I guess as part of the council, when they end up, you guys get up and elect, we'll make those decisions together. It's not just a one-man show. So thanks.
Good evening. My name's Rob Gilmore. Kindersley's been my home for 37 years. It's been a great place to live and raise a family. I'm open for the opportunity to give back to the community by serving on council. Our economy has seen a significant downturn in the last 2 years, and we face some real challenges. I believe major changes need to be made in administration and the governance structure. Currently, operational spending decisions are being made behind closed doors by unelected officials. Our community deserves a say in these matters. Water must become affordable, and we desperately need a swimming pool. We need real transparency from our local government, and we need to expand the information available to everyone on the town website. If we can become more efficient and prioritize our spending, we can reach these goals and continue to grow and prosper. I hope you will consider voting for me on October 26th. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm James Garland, Jim Garland for everybody that knows me. I'm third generation here in Kindersley. I'm currently raising fourth generation, and I'm hoping that next generation continues on. My feeling is we need to bring it back down to the grassroots with this community. We've been talking about growing this community for the last number of years. We can't do that until we get the people to come into this community and stay. They need to be able to root into the community and make it home. Without that, we don't have our frontline workers. We don't have that additional spending. We don't have our extra tax base that we need to work upon. With the working class we want to bring into this area, it's going to help make us a sustainable, vibrant, and a beautiful community that most of us have grown up in. As many of the other people have said, I'm just one voice in many. I hope to represent the population of Kindersley to the best of my ability, and I look forward to your votes here in October.
Does that work better? There we go. Even I can hear it. Anyway, Dean Galbraith, family moved here in '76, so I've been here for 40 years. Been a member of the community. Part of minor sports for a few years, coached hockey for most of my son's hockey career, whatever, in minor sports. And like I said, he's living here currently. I can't see him ever moving. My daughter's in the area, so I'd really like to see this town thrive and continue to thrive, business-wise, to try and grow it. Do what I can. Owning the various businesses, I feel like it's an asset to try and help with that side of it. I guess I just want to basically help out as much as I can, and I think I could be a real asset bringing it along. So that'll be it.
Hi, I'm Ken Francis. Was born in Kindersley nearly 50 years ago when our hospital was new. It still looks the same. Honestly, I can't remember. But raised in Etonia community, moved away for schooling, spent almost 10 years working in Saskatchewan and other areas, moved back to Kindersley to raise our family. We think Kindersley is a great community, and this is an opportunity I'm taking to hopefully sit as a councilman and hopefully better our community and give back for all the things it's done for us. So, thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Scott Falls. I'm originally from Ontario and I moved out to Saskatchewan in 2000. Moved into Kindersley in 2003. I've worked here the entire time I've lived here. I currently work for a local business and I have been paying attention to the budgets over the last few years. I feel that we definitely need to pull some of our fiscal expenditures that aren't needed, and as Jim mentioned, we need to attract people here and get them to stay. And unfortunately, the cost of living in this town is not very conducive to that. And if we can get our budget under control, then we can help reduce the cost of living in Kindersley, and then we can increase our tax base and hopefully get a pool as quickly as possible. Thank you for your time.
Test. My name is Randy Irvine. I've lived here my whole life. My mother started a family business here in '76. I was in high school. I've been there ever since. I've seen a lot of changes in town, lots of good ones, some maybe not so much. But, you know, I do remember a lot of things that went on here, and I always thought it'd be interesting to run for council and see things from the other side of the fence. I commend the previous council and mayors for what they do. Around Coffee Row, you can often state your opinion and solve all the problems of the town, but I don't think until you've been on the other side of the fence, you understand all the variables in the situations. And that's why that's why I've decided to run. I know the previous councils, from being a person that's been involved with lots of different organizations over the years here in town, in particular, the biggest would be sports. You will never keep everybody happy. You can do your best and you can do what you think is right for the majority or the team. There's always going to be somebody that has a different angle on it and doesn't agree with you, but you have to do what's good for the group. And I think by looking at the people that are running here and the mayors, I know most all of them. Scott's probably the only guy that I just met tonight, basically. But I know a number of the people here do run their own businesses, and they have run their own businesses for 5 years up to, in my case, roughly 40 years we've been on Main Street. When you're accountable for your own money, you spend it different. And that, to me, is a big problem with the town.
Randy, we're going to have to wrap it up real quick.
I'm done? I resign. Good night.
Hi, everyone. My name's Chris Douglas, and I've been here a long time, too. I've been here since the Oilers last won a cup. I have a lot to do with the community. I've been involved in lots of different things. I just want to sort of listen to what people have to say and bring it forward to council as my plan. I definitely think we need to do something about housing in this community. I think, you know, when things are busy, we're very short. I think we need to plan for that now. We definitely need a pool. We definitely need to do some things. We have to do our best to try. We have a lot of good people who are running here, so nobody's going to lose. You know, the town is going to win in this. So, thank you.
Hi, everyone. Rob Cody. I was born in Kindersley, so I've been here most of my life. Left town for some college years and came back, and I have a business here in town in the oil field. I have 4 boys, 2 of my own, and I have 2 stepsons, and they're all involved in sports. I do see some things that we can shoot for in the town. Swimming pool is one of them that's been mentioned a couple times tonight. I also am open to all sorts of other stuff. I'm kind of like Randy. I've always been on the other side of the fence myself. I've been curious to see what it's like to be on the council. My dad was a counselor, and I just thought it'd be something that I'd be interested in doing and maybe helping to benefit the town. I'm looking for the long-term plan. I'd like to see, you know, lots of growth and future for Kindersley, you know, 20 years down the road, and let's keep increasing the size of the town and everything else. Thank you.
My name's Gary Becker. Same thing. I was born in this town, lived here 90% of my life, took schooling here. Currently own a small business here in the oil fields, a small business employer. Have a wife with 3 kids. We're active in the community through sports and the church and various other service groups. And I'd just like to make, if I get on council, to be as a representative, more open. The town, I find, with sports groups, or not sports groups, service groups have a more open policy. And I would want another thing, financial accountability. Running a small business, like Randy said, every dollar counts, and I think a guy could add to the financial side of that. Thanks.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Tammy Anderson Jackson. I'm running for council because I want to continue my dedication and further and extend my involvement in the community. I believe we need a council who are interested in open communication, transparency, and serving ratepayers. Kindersley deserves strong leadership to question where our tax dollars go, why our water rates are so high, and people who are going to do the research to look for solutions and act on them. I know we face some big challenges and really tough decisions ahead, but I feel like I have what it takes to do the hard work to get to the point that we can afford the cost of living in Kindersley. Thank you.
So if anybody has any questions or anything, please feel free to go up to the microphone, and I will acknowledge you and let you ask your question. Seeing as there's nobody there right now, there are a few questions that I was given to ask, so we'll start with the first one here. And I know that we've heard some general things from all of the candidates. The question here is, what are the two most important things you want to see happen during your tenure for the betterment of the community and to move forward with the town? So, seeing as Tammy got to go last before, we're going to let her go first this time. And then again, we will just carry on down.
Two of the things that I would really like to see would be financial responsibility, where we get to question where our tax money and water revenue have gone. When assets are sold, that we get to question whether or not those assets have gone back into the reserves for the accounts, that, like the pool equipment being sold, if that went back into the pool reserve. And the second thing would be water rates and bills. Rates here are higher than most comparable municipalities. These meters that we have cannot tell the difference between water and air, and so it is questionable regardless of what came back from Measurements Canada, because they did not test for air. The rates that we are paying and the extreme amount of gallons that we are all being charged to not settle on a generic letter from Neptune saying what these meters do and do not do, and that we even question the tests that Measurements Canada did because they did not test for program glitches or error that could be going through these meters. And those are two of the big things that I would like to see happen in the next 4 years.
I think my number one priority would be to get a swimming pool built. I know that's a big issue with the town. Some people for it, some not. Depending on funding, outdoor, if that's all we can afford, and indoor, if we can afford that, would probably be better. I think indoor for the older population is a good thing. I know my kids took swimming lessons in the outdoor pool, and there was lots of days canceled because of lightning, thunder. And so that would be my number one priority. And my number two priority would be to get some streamlining in the town. I know our taxes are high. I can't see them coming down anytime soon. I believe there is a lot of catch up in this town, but I think there can be streamlining. Yeah. I guess number three thing might be, if I can add that quick, I would like to just see the town work better with service groups. That would be a open door policy would be number three. Thanks.
Sounds repetitive, but I'm going to agree with Gary on a couple of his things too. obviously recreation's big for me and the young kids and in the town. And yeah, swimming pool is definitely a topic. But everything's got to be, it's a budget, right? It's got to be planned out, and that's the second part of my answer is the budget too, is make sure things are spent in the right places. And same thing Randy mentioned and a couple other guys on the table up here, you know, run it like a smaller business and watch every penny that you spend and try and make the best of it.
Well, I think the biggest thing for me is there seems to be a lot of animosity between the people of the town and the town. And it has to end. We're not going to grow this way. And communication between the town, the people, the town, the RM, all of our surrounding communities is a big start. We have to do that. My second one would be a partner and I just finished building a duplex in town here, and we had a lot of struggles with the town, and that's pretty brought me up here. I think is we have to find a way to not make things so difficult to do things in this town. I understand that there's rules and regulations and bylaws, but if it's going to stop everything from happening and nobody wants to do any business, we're going to get nowhere. So we have to open up some things. We have to communicate better with people that want to build this town and not put roadblocks in front of them. That's all. Thanks.
I think the pool is going to be a common theme here tonight, not just this question, but others. And obviously, a town this size, we really do need one. As for the cost and the size and everything, you know, I agree with Gary. We need one. I'm not quite on the same page with whether an indoor is necessary. And there are several reasons for that. I'll go over my time again if I start getting into it. But but I just think we're taxed enough already. This is a very expensive town to live in. It always has been. When oil was booming, and even when it wasn't, you could buy a house cheaper in Red Deer, Drumhill, or Medicine Hat than you can here. It's always been that way. Other parts of the province weren't doing well. We always seem to have high prices, just the way it is. You know, with a new pool, and to operate that pool is going to come more taxes. I'm fed up with taxes. I really am. They probably will increase if we do get a pool, but I think we have to be reasonable about that. And we can't forget about a new fire hall and a new landfill. Those are two other important things that need to be addressed, and they're all good causes. Thank you.
I think my number one priority would be like in aiming towards the pool by being as fiscally sound and responsible as possible. And honestly, that is going to be crucial to this town's success. For us to become an even greater town is we need to become fiscally responsible so that we can actually sustain growth, sustain new residents, and keep them here, retain them. And my second priority would be us as a council being more open and accountable to our ratepayers. Not much else to say about that, so thank you.
Yeah, it's starting to sound like a broken record. It's a very common theme up here, but my personal number one priority would be to review and to evaluate the spending that's taking place in this town. There's a lot of revenue taken in by the town. I don't know the exact numbers, but I've talked to a few people in other communities that have far smaller budgets than we do, and they have just as many facilities. So the number one priority for me would be to review and evaluate our budget, our spending, our income. And number two would be to add to our existing facilities, vis-a-vis pool, but also our existing infrastructure. We have great infrastructure in Kindersley, facilities for sports, entertainment, places like this that are getting remodeled and saved from demolition. Those things need to keep happening.
Basically, same as Ken said on all the others so far, is the spending issue. I feel there needs to be, obviously, accountability on all of it. We can't... closer? Hear me now? Got her? I'm going to make a minute here. Yeah, so spending is obviously the biggest thing for, I think, all of us here. So, yeah, just really look at that and just get down to what is really important and what we need, prioritize everything, and then budget from that. I mean, a pool would be wonderful. I'm all for it. But as long as we can build it, if we can have savings somewhere, without tax increases and work with that. I think we need to come up with a budget of what we can spend, and then work around that instead of going for a dream with water slides and all those kind of pools. I mean, let's find out what our budget is and then work around that. Secondly, it looks like my minute's up. Just a general overall look at the town infrastructure, everything like that. Some of the industrial area is like a disaster right now. It's like a war zone driving around there. I'd like to see some more spending out on the roads out that way to try and get some of the water out of town. And that'll be it.
I think it comes right down to the basics. As I said in my opening speech, we need to get the population base back into Kindersley. There isn't one person out there right now that wants to see an increase in their rates. If we don't have the population, we can all sit up here and say we want the pool, we want the rec center, we want all this high-end stuff that really looks good when you drive into the community, but it really sucks when you can't afford to pay for it. We need our population here. Without those people making the money and then spending it back in the community, we're fighting a losing battle. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we really need to prioritize their spending, become more efficient at what we're doing. Anytime we got to go back to the taxpayer, we got to make sure that we've done everything we can before we go asking for more money. I mean, that means the same with the water rates. Water is becoming unaffordable for people. I mean, if you can't pay your water bill, and there's expected increases in 2017. If we get another substantial increase then, I'm not sure what some people are going to do, and I think it has to be addressed.
Thanks. Again, you got a common theme. My top two things probably would be the pool. And I believe the relationship we have with the ball club and with the recent contract we had here with the Norman Ritchie Center, I think those are big things. When we can have those groups take over and they have the passion to run them. They put a lot of volunteer hours into things like that. So kind of what Gary said with working with those service groups. There's numerous things, and I don't want to limit it to two things. I'd like to have a better relationship with the RM. I'd like to have a better relationship with the fire hall. I'd like to get the landfill done. It's a community project with 17 municipalities that are involved with that. I'd like to continue with the pool. I think if we can get the Build Canada grant in April, heaven forbid that the provincial government actually gives us an answer in April, would be nice. It'd be nice to work with 75 cents on the dollar if we could do something like that. There's so many things to continue. Keeping the taxes down, you talk about growth. We got to have some low-income housing for some of the people that do some of their low-level jobs because they can't afford to stay here. And you talk about increasing population. So there's numerous things. I don't want to narrow it down to just two. Thanks.
To narrow it down to just two main priorities is a little difficult, but if I were to have to choose, If I were to have to choose two, it would be operational efficiency and sustainability. Without those two, you cannot see responsible growth. You will not have user fees and taxes at a reasonable rate. We need to look at those head on, and we need to ensure our input and output ratios are appropriate and that we are growing at a sustainable rate that residents can afford to live here and that we can enhance the quality of life in our current services in order to bring in that growth.
Thank you, everyone. Did you have a question?
Yes. My name is Clifford Neufeld. I've been in Kindersley for 30-some years now, and it saddens me in the last 5 or 6 years that I've seen a decline or an increase in our crime rate. Call it what you want. We have trucks being broken into every day of the week, just about racing down Main Street. not one of you has mentioned increasing police or doing something about that situation that is getting totally out of hand. And to me, that's a little disappointing. I'm not arguing about all the things you said, but I think we need to address that, and I think it's up to you guys to do something with it.
Sorry, Cliff, there wasn't a question there at all, was there?
Okay, well, we rephrase it. You guys intend on doing anything about the policing issue in town here to increase it, to give us more protection, so I don't have to worry about leaving a shovel in the back of my truck at night and it still being there in the morning?
I'll answer that, Cliff. I agree with you. You're right. It did get missed by all of us. I live in Rosedale, and my kids are at the golf course all the time. And Ditson Drive is, they've got some of those sensors up right now for speeding, but I don't know what it's for, if it's accurate or not. But you're right. I do agree, because every time my boys go to the golf course and back into Rosedale, it keeps me up at night. Cars are racing up and down Ditson every night. I don't know what that monitor's for, but it does need to be fixed. I'm totally on side.
I recently had a discussion with the constable here in town. I was a victim of crime. And we had quite a discussion about that his hands are tied so badly. They can't do much. The provincial and federal governments have put so many roadblocks in their way that they spend 80% of their time trying to get a conviction. What I came across with was, maybe we should work a little bit more on prevention, try to stop the crime from happening. And maybe instead of spending that time behind the desk making reports and working on things, maybe they should actually just be out there, spend the money, be in front of places. The recent drug busts we had in town, I said, if you just went out and parked in front of that house for twice a day for 15 minutes, how many people do you think would come and buy? They're more focused on getting a conviction because that's what they're told. That's what their job is. It's going to be a tough road because they would go against what they're told they have to do. So I don't think there's anything we here could do, but you can always try.
This is a good question, Cliff. All you have to do is listen to people or go on to the local rant and rave site, and everybody's talking about racing and squealing tires and everything else. You don't even have to go on there. All you got to do is open your window. But, in the type of industry around here, and trust me, it's not all oil field related, but some of it is. And you get a lot of different people in town, and then when it crashes like it did, I don't know, where else, maybe they leave, maybe they don't, but they become desperate. And the drug situation is a mess too. It's that way everywhere. And it's not the old drug school drugs. And that's part of the problem. Now, I don't know what the existing town council has done. I know firsthand I've been tempted to just downtown throw a shovel through a window at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. But I know how that would turn out. But what I would do if I was on town council, and I think the rest would probably do it, is we would approach the RCMP and say, look, a single voice, I'm not getting any results when I phone at 11 or 12 at night, and a lot of other people aren't either. They can't be everywhere and all that stuff. But I think it would pull more weight if the council, whatever authority they have over the RCMP, approached them and said, come on, this has to change.
I agree with Randy on that aspect of, we would have to approach the RCMP and see what we can actually get them to do to increase it. But I also have several ideas that would help in the prevention of the causes, just like Chris said. The big key isn't the policing, it's the giving the kids something to do to get them out of the co-op parking lot so they don't have the desire to do the drag racing. I have an idea of working with some of our nonprofit organizations and seeing about putting together a youth center for our teenagers because they get bored, they cause mischief. And yes, that's not all of the crime in town, but you give them something to do, they won't get into the drugs, they won't need to commit the crimes to pay for the drugs. They won't get into the drag racing. They won't be just causing mischief to cure their boredom. Give them something to do. That would, I think, curb a lot of the crime in this town.
Does it work good enough? Not knowing the relationship between town council and the police service, the RCMP, I can't really speculate on how that works exactly, but if there is dialogue between the town council, the administration, and the RCMP, those discussions should take place and take those issues more seriously. So I don't disagree with what anyone has said, but I'm not educated enough on how that communication works to comment on that any further.
That's basically what I was going to say, is I don't really know enough about how those, they work together. This stuff's been going on for years, and there is a ramp up of theft and all that, but of course, most of that's related to the fact that there's a lot of people without jobs or money or whatever. So I'd be open for any suggestions on how to curb the debt, but for right now, I don't have an answer. I don't know if anybody else does, but definitely look into it.
I think one of the things that really comes to mind when I hear about the issue with theft, break and enter, the drugs and sword, is the fact that our population, and it's not just here in Kindersley, is so willing to sit and point their fingers at a group of people who are trying their best to take the world on their shoulders and make it a good place. We need to look back at ourselves. We have programs in this community, such as COPS, and I don't know how many in this audience here are part of that program. But by putting yourself on the street and becoming visible, they're like anything else. If there's people around, the chances of the crimes occurring drop off quite rapidly. It's not going to make them all go away, but it sure helps curb it. Becoming more involved in those committees, in those groups, getting out with the town, and simple patrolling is going to do a lot for that. Again, I don't know what the relationship is with the town and our local police force, but without the proper information, I really can't make an answer in that effect.
I think I agree that there's probably a problem with increased crime in the last few years. And as a town council, we're there to represent the community. And if the RCMP are not directly dealing with the issue and it comes to council, I think that they could provide some encouragement to the RCMP to help with the issue. I think on any matter, if the community has issues, they should bring it to council, and if they can do something for us to move it forward and make it better, that would be the direction I'd like to see.
I'll share some information, I guess, on what we do. I guess it comes down to level of service, Cliff, and I could have police officers doing sting operations to stop drug busts all the time, and we could have lots of cops out there on every corner stopping the speeding. And the level of service is, do we have 50 cops in town or do we have 9? Right now we have 9 cops in town, and they're spread out in such a large area. Where do they go? Most people know, I think, that they're on a time frame as far as they don't really work through the middle of the night. So if basically from 3 o'clock till 8 in the morning, they're not really around. And it's at what time do you give them some rest and some relaxation so that they can do a good job and they're not tired? There are options out there. There's community safety officers, which is a new program through the government. We've talked about that as a council numerous times, probably over the last 2 years. Again, it was level of service. You guys are talking about making sure we're tight on the budgets and this and that. It was an added cost to do that. Do we bring it in? Do we not? I don't think there's much you can do with the economy being the way it is right now. Is it drugs? Is it speeding? Is it upset? Lock your cars. This isn't Saskatchewan circa 1983. There's things we can do to prevent it. I agree with Mr. Falls there at the end, that preventative stuff. is what we maybe need to do as far as community youth halls and stuff like that. That's from a council perspective. We can lobby the government as much as we want, but it's a provincial government that's run the RCMP. Once we get to the 5,000 people, we can have a little more say if we go to city status. Okay, sorry, thanks.
Thank you for the question, Cliff. I do agree that crime has increased in Kindersley, whether that has been attached to the drop in the economy or just simply for the sake of doing crime. I don't know if there is an exact answer or solution to the problem. However, I do believe that council can work towards solutions. We can look at preventative measures, helping the citizens on patrol get some more volunteers and get bodies out on our street, as well as maybe lobbying our provincial and federal governments to provide more funding, because as Henry had informed us, is our resources are limited. With 9 individuals patrolling the size of area as we do, they can only do so much. So I think going towards the provincial government to increase those would be something that could be done, as well as finding preventative ways locally to help prevent crimes from happening.
Hi, thank you for the question, Cliff. This one actually really hits close to the heart for me because August 2015, we lost a driver here in Kindersley to fentanyl, and he was the 4th within the year, I believe, to have passed away. And so I've got a firsthand opportunity to talk to many officers here in Kindersley about many of the issues that go on, and I learned a lot. I can't say enough for what they do. So to say that they should just be sitting outside of someone's house, waiting for them to do something wrong, or waiting at the 4-way stop for someone to blow the stop sign, or waiting for someone, they respond on all the time to things that are going on. And so I really think it's going to take a community, the entire community, not just council or the RCMP, to bring these situations to the light and work together, all of us, and educate our kids on drugs and dangerous driving, and let them know how it affects their lives and the people's lives that they're involving in the crime, and just support the RCMP. And I just can't say enough for what they do for our community, and I'm very thankful for them.
I don't know enough about the RCMP either to comment on that. I do know one thing. I was talking to some industrial guys, like there's been some more crime in the industrial park, and they were very disappointed a few months ago when it was maybe it was a year ago even, but they had people staying in their lots because there was nowhere to go in town. And they said the biggest disappointment of that, having to move people off their lots, is they had a person living there 24 hours a day. So then guys, when people were, thieving and that, when there's always 24-hour people staying on their lot. I don't know if it is a problem with the town, but I don't think accommodation is a problem anymore. But them having somebody living in a trailer on their lot made them sleep easier at night. So I don't know if we can do stuff like that again, unless it's a health code or something. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Chester Dobney. There's been a lot said about both taxes and expenditures. I would like to know what the candidates' thoughts are on making Kindersley more attractive both to individuals and businesses in order to increase the tax base.
Okay, and we'll maybe start with Scott, if we could, and we'll just carry on down the table and then back around.
That's a very good question, Chester. A couple ideas that I have as far as that would go is, like, the big one is leisure. There isn't really a lot to do in this town besides go to the bar, and not everyone likes that. I'd like to help encourage some sort of other additional businesses or additional, like, sports groups that aren't existing, like we have the volleyball starting right away, like additional ones like that to give adults, and as I mentioned earlier, like a youth center for the kids, like more things to do leisurely, to give people something to do, to attract them here. If there's something to do, they're more apt to come. And if there's actually entertainment in town, they're more apt to stay when they are here.
My thoughts on making the town more attractive for people to move here is to have a little a friendlier tax regime. It's very expensive to live here, as many people have stated in the past few minutes. It's one of the highest jurisdictions for taxes in the province, from what I understand. And in order to attract people, we need to have our infrastructure in place, not piecemeal facilities like we currently have right now. So we need to have good facilities. We need to be able to operate them and sustain them financially. And we need to attract more industry, different types of industry, rather than just agriculture and oil field.
I think I'll expand on the tax base. If it's more attractive on both sides, residential and business, perhaps more businesses will come to town, which in turn would need more people, which in turn would help make it more attractive because there's a job here for people. So I think it's a win-win if we can kind of get that under control and it'll work for on both sides.
I think it all comes right back down to the same thing I've been saying all night. We need to get the people into town. With that, it means we've got to have affordable, cost-efficient housing available for them. We can't expect people to live in hotels at over $100 a night and feel good about it. We can't expect people who are making just over the minimum wage coming home and, oh, by the way, we have to skip lunch today because we're trying to make ends meet. We need to bring our costs down. We need to bring our housing costs down. I know for a lot of landlords, that's a bitter pill. Well, it's got to start somewhere. And we need to bring those costs back into line so that our frontline workers, who are 75% of your workforce, have a safe, reliable place to live. Thank you.
I believe that if we can control the high cost or the cost of living in Kindersley, we should be able to attract more people here. I mean, there's some things we can't control. I mean, the overall economy, I mean, that affects how the growth of the community continues. But the things we can do is get the costs down. So if we do get some growth going forward, that people are going to come here instead of moving to the small towns around Kindersley. You know, the growth of all the little towns around us is getting big. Everybody wants to live in the RMs because the cost of living is cheaper. We need to encourage those people to get back to Kindersley, and hopefully we can do that by reducing the costs.
Right now we have a 3-year tax exemption policy in place, and I guess you can do two things. You can cut expenses or you can increase growth. So you've got more homes paying taxes. So I think we've done some things. I guess it comes down to level of service. We talk about putting money into a regional landfill, talk about doing a lagoon, fire hall, pool, all of these things. They cost money. So either you cut your expenses or increase your growth. The one way to increase growth is hopefully to bring in some low-income housing. There's some things tied to what we can and can't do as a municipal government, but it's working with Sask Housing hopefully to try and get some growth that way and bring in some more housing that way. It's working with developers to get some stuff done there so we can get some people moving into different homes. It comes down to level of service of what people want. I think of our pool. When the original one came out, we wanted a $26 million pool. Well, you're not going to be saving any taxes with something like that. So we got to be realistic when we're making our choices.
Well, in order to attract growth, we need to first concentrate on being a better community of 4,700. We need to meet our needs today without compromising our future. being cost efficient and sustainable is what ultimately creates growth and attracts that growth. So when we can maintain our current infrastructure and services and add to it at a sustainable rate without increasing user fees and taxes, that's how we will create growth and in a responsible manner.
I think to attract people that it is about infrastructure and amenities like pools, because they are the backbone of our economy and the quality of life. For instance, doctors moving to town, if they are asked that to live on the west side of town, to be able to save a park on the side of town where the doctors are requested to live once they come here, would be pretty important even to keep things like doctors in place. Also, the cost of living is very important. When you can live 20 kilometers outside of Kindersley and your cost of living is half, and your kids can go swimming and they can go to well taken care of parks, and as a parent, that gives you the freedom to go and do things. I think that it's come down to a quality of life, what people want more for what they're paying for, and once we can get that back on track, that Kindersley's growth will follow.
I would probably like to expand on the town's program of tax breaks for new businesses or when businesses invest new capital. If you don't have a building in town on a vacant lot, you're getting very minimum tax revenue as it stands. But if a guy is willing to put the capital, whether it's a new house, Sean, are you guys still doing the 3-year for the houses too? Okay, that's a good program. If it's a old tear down house and they build a new one, give them 3 years the same taxes as the old one, because that house will be there for 50 years and you'll get lots of taxes off it. The same with big buildings. I would encourage, you see other businesses, like I think Extra Foods is moving out at the end of the year. As a town council, I would be sending somebody to talk to them when we lost Canadian Tire, and it's what do we need to make you to stay? Do we need a tax break on if you're going to build a $5 million building? Because we will work with you, and I think you keep them here, keep the taxes here, and more guys paying, and that's my take.
I'm going excuse me. I'm going to agree with Gary totally on all of that. That's exactly what we need to do. Keep businesses in town and build more housing. Low-income housing is a start. You got to get those people back into Kindersley, and it's going to be tough. It is cheaper to live in Coville or Eston, but they don't maybe have the facilities that we have, and we need to work on those facilities. We need to keep them up. I know I've talked about sports a lot, but it is a big thing to bring small people into town, young kids into town, is you do have to have the facilities for the kids to play at, and that's the parks, that's the pools, that's the recreation center. Something I'd like to see is, no one's touched on it yet tonight, I'd like to see an indoor soccer or an indoor ball field in our rink facility. Not necessarily saying take out the rink, because that'll create lots of arguments, but in the summertime, there's absolutely no reason why we can't have indoor ball or indoor soccer. I know kids are interested in indoor lacrosse, which will bring people to town too. Nobody else has lacrosse around. There's all sorts of opportunities that way to get young families into town. My minute's up. Sorry.
You know, we live surrounded by an RM that's very successful, has money in the bank and the lowest mill rate in the whole country. And, you know, we live in the town that has one of the highest mill rates anywhere in the country and no money in the bank. I think we definitely have to maybe, you know, it doesn't seem right. We both live in the same area. They wonder why everybody wants to build an acreage. You know, I think maybe we need to learn some lessons from the way the RM does things, or we need some better communication, and we need to work with the RM better. I seem to hear that there seems to be a lot of animosity again between the town and the RM, which again, why? Doesn't make any sense.
There's a number of issues that everybody's brought up here that are good. I really like, Gary, what you were talking about there, too. We have to put the welcome mat out for people that want to move here and businesses. We have to help them and not make them feel like we don't want them. I know when Walmart moved here, there was an agreement. I believe they paid for all the infrastructure out there east of Ditson in exchange for 5 years of no tax. It's something like that. That might not be bang on, but that's the kind of stuff you have to do. The town council and the administration have to make people feel like you want them here. I don't know what affordable housing is. 2x4s, gyprock costs a certain price. Electricians and plumbers charge a certain price. I don't know what affordable housing is. You want a 600 square foot house and invite people to come and live here, they're going to pay a certain price per square foot. The same thing for a 2,000 square foot one. I think all the town can do is take a look at what they're offering in lot prices, and maybe that's an incentive. Don't worry about getting your money back the first 10 years. Look long term, because if you've been to Brook Hollows, and that's, I believe, that's a private, individual that's looking after that, and those lots start at 92 and go to $110,000. They're serviced,
Randy?
but that's out of most people's range.
I tell you, it's got to be the hardest thing up here for a lawyer to try and get a politician to quit talking. We both enjoy the talk. Go ahead, Matt.
My question is, how do you feel compost, including kitchen compost, fits into Kindersley Essential Services and the new landfill?
Okay, everybody heard that? Good, because I couldn't remember to repeat it. The question was basically...
How do you feel compost, including kitchen compost, fits into Kindersley's Essential Services and the new landfill?
So dealing with compost and essential services and the new landfill, combining all that. We'll start with Jim and just carry on down from there.
Well, I just got informed by probably a fellow counselor. I have to set the tone up here. I have no idea. I can sit here and I can tell you a song and dance. If you want that, the old council is there to do that for you. What I can say for you is quite simply, I will look at what is there, how it is presented with our new facilities, and what the picture will be. Thank you.
I'm not too familiar with what the current status of the new landfill is. I know there's a little bit of information out there. I think obviously compost, I would assume, is part of the plan. I don't know how in-depth it is and what kind of money they're talking about spending on it, but I would assume, and I would support it being part of the landfill. To what extent, I'm not sure.
Thanks. Right now, compost is leaves and grass. It's optional. You see the green bins out there for some, and it's $120 a year. Basically runs from May to October. It does not take food compost from the kitchen at this point in time. I know the lady asking the question does have a little compost business, and it's a good little thing. For $2 a week, I'll get your plug in there. But basically, as far as the West Central regional landfill, compost will be a part of it. There's still negotiations going on with the company that's been chosen to build and operate. And I suspect it's part of it. I'm not up to date on the full contract because I don't think it's been specified yet. But it's just another piece that's a change for people to do. The more composting and more recycling we can do, obviously the landfill lasts a lot longer, and it doesn't cost us as much money to run because we don't have to build a new one. So I would support it. People need to get on board with it as well.
Thanks for the question, Jeanette. I personally compost at home in my garden, and I do compost my household organic, so my lettuce ends, and that has made a significant impact in my waste from my household alone. So I do think that compost is a viable option and should be being implemented into our new facility. I have done some research on composting programs with other communities. Craik, Saskatchewan, for one, is a population of 150 people, and in 10 years they've managed to divert 50 tons of garbage from their dump. With that compost, they actually sell it in order to help recoup some costs as well. So myself, I am in full support of composting, and I would like to see programs implemented. I don't want to see them to be optional. I think no different than our blue bins, once you implement the program, people are going to get on board, and that will help create our essential services with our waste management to be more sustainable for a longer period of time, as well as create a potential revenue opportunity with the resale of the compost.
I did some research as well on compost, and so I do know that in pilot communities, green carts or compost bins have proven to be effective in diverting 40% of waste, and it also reduces dependence on our landfills. It reduces greenhouse gases, and it turns food and yard waste into useful compost, which then can also be turned into revenue.
I don't know much about the subject either, but if there is individuals like you that obviously are active in it, I don't know why the town wouldn't work with a person like that and work with her if she's spearheaded and it makes sense for everybody to, if she wants to run a program like that. The numbers make sense, why wouldn't we try it?
I agree with Gary also. Jeanette, I have had this talk with Jeanette, and I definitely would support it also. I'm currently not composting, and I should probably look into that.
I've learned a lot about composting in the last 10 minutes. Good on you. You know what? I said at the very beginning, we have to listen to the people. That's what we have to do in this town. We need to make it easy for people to come and talk to the council and try to shape these decisions. Good job.
I really, about all I can have to do with composting would be grass cutting and leaves. To be honest with you, I don't know much about it, with all due respect. And I would like my 50 seconds allotted to my overtime on my previous comments.
Well, Elise and Tammy both mentioned the main thing that I was going to mention is, like, I think that the compost should be a very important part with that of the new landfill, because compost can be a great source of additional revenue to offset the cost of operating the landfill.
I as well, I'm not really on one side or the other of composting. What I am for is reduction in our landfill usage and volume. And I think it's more than just composting, it's our recycling in general. I don't know the statistics, but I have a bad feeling that those recycling bins that we put out are getting dumped in the same truck and dumped in one big spot. And we're trying to do the best we can as citizens and sorting our stuff. I would like to know, if I get on council, exactly what happens to that stuff, and if there's better methods or things we can do to be more friendly in that regard. Yeah, I have no composting, like I said, anything that's brought forward, I'll discuss it. I obviously don't have an opinion on it. That's it, well, as far as it goes.
Okay, thank you. I see there's 3 people standing up, and that's all the time we're going to have is for those 3 questions. Dave, I think you were up first, so.
I've heard a lot of questions and lots of suggestions out there about service clubs and everything else in the town of Kindersley. And I want to thank everybody here that does volunteer and work with service clubs and everything else, but we have lost more service clubs in this community than I can ever imagine. I'm a member of one very good service club. We try our best, but how does a council think that with the service clubs that are there, there's only 1 or 2 of them that left in town, where you're going to get the support from? Because we can't get volunteers now, which we have great volunteers in this community, but there's volunteers that we need more than just when we have a major sports unit facility, when we have a Kinsman Park facility that's going up. We have the Legion trying to rebuild. We have this place. We have all these kind of service clubs going type of deal. But when we don't have the Kinsmen, the Lions, the Canettes, the Lioness, and all those like we used to have, how do you expect to have the service club stand behind you as council members to work with you when we don't have the members there to help?
Okay. Tammy volunteered to start, so we will start with her and work from there.
So as the president of Kinsman Park and the renewal for Kinsman Park, I have learned quite a few things, and that is that service groups are what has brought most communities to where they are with parks and volunteer. And I also learned that from 1981 to 1994 that there was 5 town employees, I believe, that were in charge of most things, and now as the town of Kindersley, we are at about 21. So my first reaction to that was, why do we have 21 when we only needed 5? And it is because these service groups have started to dissolve, and this is where we are picking up the slack as taxpayers. So instead of paying the extra tax, we could actually volunteer and be a part of these service groups again and have our parks back and have all these great amenities. And it's a win-win. We could save on tax money and employees and build our parks and our amenities back to good.
I think service groups in general are probably dying everywhere, not just this town. It's sort of a sad situation, whether it's, like you said, Kinsmen or church groups or whatever. There just seems to be the community involvement in the society in general isn't there like it used to be. To change that, I guess the groups that are active and want to be involved, encourage them. Like, there is still a lot of people that volunteer. They're focused on their one cause, and if they come to the town for support, help them out, I guess. One example I could use is a museum committee. My dad's involved in that, and they've a bunch of old farmers wanting to fix old junk, I guess. Or not junk, but antiques. And they're an active group. And I think, they want to do a few things, and I know he's came home really mad at the town. So if they want to do something, work with them and encourage the groups that are there and try not to lose any more.
I'm a broken record here, Gary. I keep agreeing with you. But yes, makes sense. I'm open for suggestion too. If anyone comes to town looking for, starting a new service group or starting a new group or expanding on something we have already, yes, I'm going to be all for it. You're right. It does help. And I do like that, we've had volunteers trying to rebuild the Kinsman Park and McGowan, as I remember it. I don't even think it's called McGowan anymore, but the parks, it's nice to have people volunteering to help, so we got to support that.
Well, Dave, I feel with you. When service groups were strong, we had 2 television channels and we had no internet. So if elected, I would propose a bylaw to ban all internet and television. See how it goes.
I guess I really don't think it's the town council's responsibility to keep service clubs going, Dave. If they can help in any way, why would you not try and help them? But you've been involved as an umpire, and everybody in this room probably at some point in time has been on some kind of a volunteer group. Some of us forever, some of us a little bit. And quite often, it's the same people doing it all the time. If you've ever been on a ball club or a Lions club or whatever, quite often it's you want new blood, but it's hard to get new blood. And you know, it's within the individual. Do you care enough about your community to coach a ball team, be a fireman, whatever? If you do, fine. Some people just don't. And that's the bottom line. So if you care enough about the town, you might be on the Arts Council, you might be on Meals to Wheels, or Meals and Wheels, and this kind of thing. But like I say, you can't blame town council because people won't get off their ass. Sorry.
That is actually a very good question. Why would we expect you as a service group to work with us when you guys are shrinking so much? And as Gary said, volunteerism is actually on the decline all across Canada. I have listened to a lot of news talk radio segments on that, how as a whole, we as a society aren't volunteering as much as we used to. But as town council, to get you as a service group to get behind us, I would want to work with you in a more open and willing manner than what has happened in the past. Based on stories I've heard as far as how service groups have been treated in the past. And as far as any ideas to help encourage increased volunteerism, I would have to do some research and a lot of thought for that, but I would definitely want to put that thought.
What I've seen in the 20 years I've been in Kindersley is that there's a lot of causes, a lot of small causes. They're not small to the people running them, but the small towns around have one cause for 5 years, and then another, and then another. We have so many going on at once. There's no way we can service them all. But one thing I think we can do as a community is to build the infrastructure that the service clubs can use. I think service clubs, one of their biggest overhead costs is their buildings. And they can't afford to stay open. They start losing members. Their membership goes down. They have less operating money. If we can build a facility, a multi-use facility where the Lions and the Kinsmen and whoever else can use that facility or rent it cheaply, that might be an aid into keeping these clubs going.
Very good point there, Ken. Also, I think just as council, because there is more smaller groups, I think say just as council, always be there to help in any way, shape, or form all these different little, they're smaller groups, not as big as they used to be. I think there's just more smaller ones, more specific, and like I said, just for council just to be there for everyone, and listen to every need and see what we can be there to help out in any way, shape, or form.
It all seems to come down to funding, being able to keep the greenbacks coming across the counter, keeping the power turned on. I have to agree, shared accommodations for these smaller groups it's not, this is an offer, it's got to be the way it's going. You see a lot of these smaller communities that have built new community centers, they actually have the Kinsman Room or the Lions Den and such. This is something we need to do. We have a beautiful complex. We're all looking at ways of keeping people going in and out of it. That's half the battle. Keep it in the public eye. So why are we not putting the Lions Den, the Kinsman, and the sort in this facility and having them use it? The population base is there. It's not going to stop the decline. There's nothing we can do about that. But maybe it'll help retain some of the people that are fighting and are getting tired of the fight.
I think I'd like to see a new, renewed relationship with the community. there has been some good initiatives by the town, working with service groups and the community. The Kinsman Park renewal has definitely been one impressive thing that we've seen in this year, Elise and Tammy. And I think the town should be doing everything it can to encourage these projects. And I would like to move that forward. Anytime there's something the town can do, that they should step up and do the best to help.
The town has grants available. There's a couple grants, one through KSEP, through Saskatchewan Lotteries, and instead of the money going to the town, we actually dish that out to clubs. I believe it was between 60 and 70,000 last year, and that comes roughly in March, April. There's also other grants that come out. We have designated or put aside in our budget up to 15,000 every year, and it hasn't gone. Groups haven't come forward for the money. I agree with Randy. It's getting people off the couch and out. There's 125 people here. You got a pretty big vote with a brand new council, pretty much, and you got 125 people out of almost 5,000 here. I see there's people from the RM here, so it's not even all townspeople. But the fact that you're here shows your interest in the community, and they're the ones that are doing all the work. You got to get the people out of the couch, get them enticed to come out and do those things. Invite a friend to the next meeting. Bring them out, see if they can come do some of those things. It's really getting the workers to do that stuff. Anyone can throw a check, and go back to Kindersley Minor Sports Days where people would do a $200 check instead of doing their work booth hours. It was easy. But it's getting people off and off the couch. We try and do it on a financial side as best we can.
Well, the loss of service groups do have a negative impact in small communities. Small communities have been built on service clubs. They're responsible for a lot of the infrastructure that is in our communities. The Elks Hall is an example of that. The Legion is another example of that. They provide enhancement to our community, and we need to make sure that we're encouraging people to be involved, helping provide the sort of resources to our committees to help them reach the general public and engage those members to be involved in these groups. And we need to make it easier for these groups to operate within Kindersley, whether that's looking at different types of cost incentives, providing them spaces. There's options out there, and it's definitely something that needs to be looked at in order to help our community continue to thrive.
Thank you. Mike?
There's been a lot of talk about building, fire halls, housing, businesses, but there's been nothing discussed about how that you're going to actually support those things. We have an infrastructure that's failing. Everything you're talking about is above ground, not about below ground. There's businesses that have come into this community, and there's been things done to try and help them, but it's taxed what the system has right now. And like was said by Mr. Galbraith, water in the industrial area. So what are you guys going to look at doing if you want to bring all this stuff in to support these actual buildings that you're going to try and bring into this community to build on?
Okay, and we'll start with Elise and just move straight back down the table this way.
Well, I'm going to repeat something I've already said tonight on a couple different topics, is we need to concentrate on being a vibrant and strong community of 4,700. If you look at the growth history of Kindersley, we have a static growth. We have never had steady growth or gradual growth. Our highest population was actually in 1986 when we had 4,900, and the lowest population being in 2006 when we had 4,200. We don't need to concentrate on building bigger and better things. We need to concentrate now on improving what we have, enhancing our current infrastructure and our services before we can really truly look at growth. Because until you can sustain what you have now, it is unachievable to grow and to have it be sustainable. If we grow faster than we are prepared to, if we're not realistic, then we will surpass our needs. it appears that we've been working towards a perceived need versus an actual need when it does come to our growth of our community. And I just think that we need to concentrate on being a better community of 4,700, improving our infrastructure and our services, and then looking to move forward from there.
I would agree we need to improve as a community of 4,700. Where I disagree, I think, is that we do need to continue to grow. We do need to have the quality of lifestyle improve. That's the way we're going to get people in here. We've been identified as one of the rapid growth communities in Saskatchewan. We sent in our city status application. I'm looking forward to the census numbers. City status will give us some ability to be more flexible with tax classes, so hopefully that will help if we can do something like that. It might be 4 years down the road, it might be a year, but we'll see. As far as how do we handle that, I think we've got really good retained numbers in our budgets and reserve funds to sustain the stuff we have. We do need to look at the growth, but it has to be watched. We can't just go and spend. If one of the problems right now, and I'm not going to answer this, Mike, in the next 10 seconds, but the Build Canada grant comes out in April, and we've got 2 big projects on the go, as well as the landfill, and hopefully we can get some money from there that will help.
Maybe my question wasn't clear. It's about what are you doing about what's underground, not about anything else. What are you doing about the infrastructure right now there? The sewer lines, the water lines are failing. And you're talking about you want to bring in all this other stuff, which is great and fantastic. But you have right now below ground will not take anymore. What are you going to do about that? That's the question.
I think because the question was clarified, we can start back with Elise if she has anything to add, and then carry from there.
Okay, I do agree with you. I think that we need to concentrate on those issues before we can move forward, because we aren't sustainable at the moment. Our infrastructure cannot handle significant growth without being addressed first. I don't necessarily know the answer of how to address it, but it is something that we need to work on. We need to improve our infrastructure and improve the capability that it has in order to move our community forward and sustain what we currently have.
Sorry, Mike, I misunderstood the question. So I guess one of the beauties is I know a lot of people have complained in the past that why do you guys spend all this damn money on reports? One of the beauties is that we have a long-range plan on infrastructure planning. If you guys go around, I know Rosedale was partial to it here the other 2 years ago. We did some roads on 2nd and 6th, I think. When we redo the roads, we redo the infrastructure underneath. So we're not building a new road and then having to tear it up because we're going to fix the water lines. We're going to tear out the road, fix the water lines, put the road over top. There's a 10-year plan, and it's all on the webpage. It's in print as far as what that plan is. So it's not one road over the other. It's the engineering team has gone by and determined what's the worst roads. We go from there and the worst infrastructure. And we feel like we're pretty much caught up. We're not like Moose Jaw. So there are some areas still to work on, but for the most part, I think we're caught up.
Yeah, infrastructure is obviously very important. There has been a lot of money spent on it by the town. There's planning in place. I think we would continue on with that and make sure that the actual infrastructure is getting looked after, and the long-term growth and planning for that infrastructure is properly done. That and prioritizing our spending, and it's going to be a careful management between the two. And it's not going to be easy, but I think that's some of the challenges we'll be facing.
I think I understand where Mr. Radomski's coming from with this. We don't really think about it until it's percolating up in our basement one morning and we walk downstairs to get our laundry out of the washing machine. Squish, squish. It's one of those things. There isn't one person again in this room that wants to see a tax increase. But as Sean said, we have a 10-year plan that's on paper right now. We may need to look at this and readdress it if we're starting to see with the creation of the new area on the west side of town, overburdening our existing sewage system, causing it to back up into people's basements, into businesses. It's not something we need to take lightly. These are serious problems. It's bad enough dealing with day-to-day coughs and colds, let alone having sewage backing up into your house and having the possibility of mold following if it's not addressed properly. The answer, again, it's in that plan until each one of us at this table gets a chance to really sit down and look at the meat and potatoes of it. Is it in the numbers to address it properly?
Thank you. Jim, can you wrap it up real quick?
Yeah, just as far as all that infrastructure, and I think, yeah, we just need to sit down and look at what the plan is and prioritize exactly what is needed urgently over above fire halls, all that stuff. I think it's just all part of the prioritizing what we need between, like I said, there's grants, there's all this stuff. I think just we have to go through it all and decide what we need for the future, right way in the future, all of that stuff. So I think just, once we get looking at all that, discussing it, and I think that's what we have to figure out. And I think that's what we need to do is actually say to ourselves, well, we can't have this right now because this is urgently, because we need these sewer lines or whatever. So and that's what we just have to make the decision on as council of, and some of it's not pretty. It's underground, we don't see it, but I think we have to decide on that. If it's 10 years, 20 years down the road to take care of it, then so be it.
Well, it's good to know that the town actually has a plan in place. I did not know that. And I don't know if there's a direct answer to your question, Mike, but what I see from looking down this table, either side, is there's a diverse group of people here that have industrial area experience, downtown experience, of course, all residential. I'm hoping that whatever council is elected will have enough diversity and knowledge of their own particular areas that may be better than previous councils. I'm hoping so. That issues like sewage and storm sewers and drainage and all those infrastructure questions can be answered, and we can help the town make a plan to make those facilities better.
That is actually a very good question, and Mr. Henry actually basically said the same answer that I did. Like, I already knew that the town was looking, fixing and repairing, replacing the underground lines as they repave roads, because prior to that actually coming in, the street in front of my house got paved, and 3 months later had a sewer breakage and had a section get torn up of our brand new pavement. And as soon as I found out that the town was starting to do that, I was very happy. If we could actually get our budget under better control on some of our expenditures that aren't as necessary, then maybe we could actually be a little more aggressive with that. But I would want to try to be more aggressive with that program without causing an increase in rates, as well as looking at our water treatment plant, seeing how much more it can handle, and look into trying to expand that if necessary and if it's within budget.
Well, same thing, Sean. I'm glad you answered that to start with, because there's nobody up here that's been on the other side of the fence. So knowing that's great. I just want to back it up a bit. In 2006, John Boquist was the mayor here, and he implemented a policy where $300 if everybody's taxes go into a slush fund. So when my street needs to get paved, and I don't want to pay for it, and none of the other people on the block want to because it goes $2,500 or $2,000 on my taxes, all we had to do was sign a petition and they wouldn't do it. So since then, our streets are as good as I think you'll find in any community, and we don't have to deal with what we used to call Beirut Boulevard, where you couldn't even navigate down the street because of the broken pavement and so on. Now, as for the sewer and the sidewalks, that must be something the town added later, I suppose, but I believe that $300 per household taxes goes directly to a slush fund for pavement. Sean could elaborate probably. Thank you.
One of the reasons I'm up here, Mike, is because of your question. I stood in front of council a few weeks ago, and I was told that I am responsible for the town's crumbling infrastructure in front of my new duplex. And I found out that it's going to cost about as much to fix it as I paid for my first house. And I also found out the town has a backhoe. Looks like they just bought a new one. They got some trucks. They got a whole bunch of people, but they don't actually do that work. So I would look into that too, probably.
This is a new topic for me as well. I like that Sean had mentioned that there is a 10-year plan, and I'm definitely for that. I'm sure it has to be prioritized, and as things are needed, they have to be addressed. Once again, it's all going to be budgeted out, and definitely it has to be taken care of. And yeah, you're right, Mike. If you go into these new developments, you also got to look after the older areas in town too, and make sure the infrastructure is taken care of too. So I am all for the 10-year plan, and in fact, I'm sure it's more like a 20 or 30-year plan that you got to go after.
I do think the previous council did actually have a good 10-year plan, which I'd give them credit for. We as a town do, I might disagree with you, Mike, there has been a lot of infrastructure developed in the last few years, whether it's Brook Hall Estates, there's probably, is there 50 lots there or more? But anyway, there's residential lots, there's commercial lots, and I think our infrastructure is probably as good as any town our size. But I mean, there is older lines, and there might be the odd line leak with water, but it's just water. I would encourage to get those lots and infrastructure developed, like Sean said. If we had 50 houses, I don't want to see Brook Hollow Estates empty in 10 years. I want to see it full. So, I mean, whether there's a tax break of maybe 3 years isn't enough, but if a guy's going to build a new house there and he gets a 5-year tax break, the developer already spent the money there. Let's get that house built so we can have that house getting taxes for us for 50 years. And that $5,000 a year we get from that house can help pay for the infrastructure. But I would probably, our infrastructure, we'll deal with it when we see what it's like, but.
Okay, we're out of time.
This report is probably the only one that I think I haven't found on the town's website to date, so I am not familiar with it at all, but I look forward to reading it and figuring out what the proper steps are to continue to improve the infrastructure. I find the town or the roads here great, actually so great that sometimes I've wished they haven't improved them, because you can lay a really mean blackie on the new pavement. So I'd say good job to the council and town for the roads that we have.
Okay, Barry, any question?
Well, thanks. My name's Barry Andrew. And before I ask my question, I want to editorialize for just a second, because I've raised 3 children in this community, and it always bothers me when I hear people say there's nothing for our kids to do. My wife and I had trouble trying to fit it all in because my kids wanted to do it all. And I think if you're not able to find something for your children to do in this community, you're not trying very hard. It's as simple as that, because boy, there's a lot of things to do, everything from sports to dance and to music, and to, you've got the cadets, and you've got all sorts of things. So don't use that as an excuse, because there's a lot of things to do for your children. Mom and Dad just need to get off the couch. So anyway, that'll lead me to my question. I apologize for the rant, but I think it needs to be said once in a while. I've lived in this community since 1996, and I've raised my children here, so I'm going to ask the greasy question that none of you maybe want to answer, but I think it's worth asking. When I moved here, we had an administrative capacity of about 6 or 7 employees that managed to keep the lights on fairly effectively, and we had a significant amount of synergy in the community. I can remember in 2000 when we hosted the 2000 celebration that year, we brought about 1,500 people into the arena to celebrate, and there was 7 employees working in the town office at that time. Today we see jobs at an administrative capacity that Toronto might not hear of. And it confuses me because we've already established that the population hasn't changed here since 1981. It's in fact been fairly static. We continue to remain a community of slightly under 5,000 people. But yet, we managed to create all these new positions. The only thing that really changed was our governance model. And I wonder if this new council is prepared to meet the challenges of looking at reducing some of that administrative capacity and getting back to where we maybe are at a more realistic value for our dollars as taxpayers. Thank you.
Going to start with Randy.
Barry, that's a great question. You know, not only would I like to ask those questions if I happen to get elected, I'd spearhead. I'd want to be. I'd like to know why the excess, and if it's justified, I'd like it explained. I pay business tax. I mean, I pay residential like the rest of you, but I also pay business taxes here, and I don't mind if they're being used, you know, in a good fashion, and I'm sure in some cases they are. But there's a number of guys sitting up here and girls, and several of us are business owners. We've kept our businesses going for maybe 5 years to, like I said, 40 years because we're accountable for our money. And I think if the right people get elected here, they'll go in there with that mindset. Some of them are big operators, others are a little smaller. But we've all been responsible for the lights, the heat, the labor, everything else. And I'm not a big fan of waste. Okay?
I agree with you 100%, Barry. I decided I'm not going to, you know, try to do anything negative in my campaign. To say anything against the current administration would be negative. I do not believe in the Carver model, which we keep being told we don't have, but somehow we do. I'm with you.
Thanks, Barry. I am a small business owner in town too, and yeah, it's definitely got to be addressed. You got to watch what you spend right down to the penny, and there's a lot of people in the crowd here that have small businesses or have had businesses in town. I see a lot of farmers. You really got to watch what you spend, and I do agree, Barry. There's got to be some, we got to look into it deep and see where all the money's going.
Thanks for that question, Barry. That might be one of the more important questions of the night. And as a small business owner, I do think that can be addressed. That $15 million budget for the town, and you look at the RM, like Chris Douglas said, you're one of the wealthy RMs, and we're one of the poorer towns. We all seem to be cash poor. And as a business owner, that's never a fun thing. I think with the people we got on here, we can streamline, and it might not be easy. There will be layoffs. I know I'm not a huge fan of middle management. I like lots of guys in the trenches and a few guys up top. So I think when a guy gets on, there will be cuts to be made. It's obvious. It is obvious. So that's my stance.
This is the toughest question of the night, and I am completely on board with everybody before me. I do think it's way different to write the check than it is to cash it, to understand that money in means money out. And the biggest expense that you'll ever probably have as a business owner is payroll. And on top of that payroll, it's also the tax on top of paying the employees. So I would say one of the biggest payables that there is here after reviewing all the general accounts is wages. And I question how much is needed and what each position is, because I know every time I send an email or correspondence to the town, it seems like I get a new email back from a new name who's a new position. And so I'm just not sure if all the positions there are needed, and And that's where I stand on it.
Well, in regards to the Carver model, I personally have done some research on the Carver model, and it is more formally used in nonprofit organizations. It's not very often associated with operating a municipality. I don't feel that that model currently fits Kindersley and is beneficial for us. I think that we need to work on a policy model that functions with a smaller management team. I have done quite a bit of research and comparisons between Kindersley and other municipalities that are like-sized communities. We are extremely administrative heavy. Most towns that are similar to our size employ a total of 38 individuals, and that is in every department, full-time, part-time, and seasonal. Currently, Kindersley is sitting at 56. I feel that it is necessary to eliminate duplicity in certain aspects, as they are not necessary, and it is a strain on our budgeting. For an example of some duplicity is our bylaw. We currently employ 2 bylaw officers. Other communities do not. Melfort, for example,
Elise,
has 1.
Can we wrap it up quickly,
Okay.
please?
So, yeah, that'll be good.
It is a good question, and again, my common theme has been level of service. What do you guys want? We can have 30 staff. You guys heard Tammy earlier, we had 5 park staff and we needed 21 because no one else does it. So who's going to clean the roads? Who's going to make sure Mike Radomski's line is changed? Who's going to make sure that those sewer lines are cleaned out? When you don't have the staff to do that, you've got town staff, and I'll be honest, you guys all read the rant and rave. Why the hell would you be on the town staff with some of the stuff that's said? They work hard for this community, and I would stand up for them a little bit as far as what they do, because there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes, and I look forward to sharing some of those things with whoever is elected on council so that we can go through that and we can learn that process. I think of the administrative work that we do. We had 23 requests come in just on paper, and the administrative time to do that, it wasn't 20 minutes. Stuff like that was 4 or 5 people. I would guesstimate probably 6 to 7 full days to answer a request. So communication is one thing we got to do, but when we get tied up with stuff like that, it's very time consuming.
I'm not in favor of the Carver model of governance. I think since the Carver governance systems came to Kindersley, the size of the administration has grown proportionately. I think we could almost say it's also caused kind of a divide between the town and the community. I believe major changes are needed and in the administration and in the governance structure.
I think we need to look at why it has evolved to the point it has. Instead of looking backwards, and as anybody tells you, if we spend all our time looking backwards, we will never move forward. We need to understand why it's evolved, why it's doing what it's doing, and then move forward with the results of that. Until we find out those answers to those questions, we can't start swinging an axe and taking people off a payroll. We look at it, we see it as a very large structure. It's a $15 million budget. It's a big community with big expectations, and it takes a lot of manpower to do that. So I guess the easiest way to say it is we're all accountable for our jobs. If you do your job to the best of your ability, you shouldn't have to worry about it being there the next morning because you know it is there. But if you're floating along, guess what? You're going to float right out to sea.
For me, I think well, if we get in, I'd personally like to see everything on the table. Go right through everything with a fine-tooth comb, and unfortunately, and I'm willing to make the decisions if it takes what it takes, and there needs to be a reduction in staff, if that's what we think is the best route. I'm sorry, but sometimes it just has to happen. I've done it on things have slowed down. I did it on my businesses. I've cut staff. It's not easy, but it doesn't do me much good. If I don't have a business, then nobody has a job. So, and I don't think it should be any different for a community, a town, anything. It's always easy for a town just to say, well, this is what we need, we're going to have this, and we'll just raise taxes because they can do that. The rest of us can't do that. You can't do that at home and say, well, I'm just going to bring in more money. I'm just going to go to my boss and get more. And as businesses, we can't just get more. So I think everything has to go on the table, and if there needs to be cuts, I agree totally with it. I'm supported 100%. I don't know if there does have to be cuts. I'm not, like I said, I'm not in there. I'd like to go through it all, and maybe at the end of the day, there doesn't have to be. I don't know. Maybe we can find some savings elsewhere. And like I said, we'll end it with that.
Yeah, I agree with most of the comments, and I don't know for sure, but I think one of the driving factors of building a bigger staff in the town was the premise that we're going to become a city, and we will be ready when it becomes a city. We'll have the people, we'll have the infrastructure, we'll have the facilities, and again, with none of us except Sean having previous council experience, we can't sit up here and say we're going to do this, that, or the other thing until we do a full review on the full budget. I visited with a friend of mine that runs a town of 7,000 in Alberta. They have an $8 million budget, and ours is just about double that. So I think an in-depth review, as Dean said, open everything up for scrutiny, whether it's employees, wages, a number of people. Where we're spending our money, we need to get that under control, and if employees is part of that picture, then we have to look at it.
Well, being the last one, I'm definitely going to sound like a broken record, but Barry, that is actually a very excellent question. And yes, Kindersley is very administrative heavy. I actually know for a fact that we have more administration here in Kindersley than the city of North Battleford. And that's one thing I was hoping to do if I got elected, was to do a review and look at all the responsibilities of each member in our administration with a fine-tooth comb to see if there was any way of streamlining it to make it more affordable, to cut down on the costs of running this town.
Well, thank you all very much. I want to wish each and every one of you all the best in the upcoming election. And ladies and gentlemen, this is your group of candidates for council. So I don't have the same excuse as last time. I can actually see who's sitting where. So we have our two mayoral candidates, Rod Perkins to my far left, and then closer to me, Tom Morris. We'll allow them to do their opening remarks. We'll start with Rod Perkins.
Thank you very much, Monty. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Great to see a good crowd here. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Rod Perkins. I've lived here for 42 years. That's because why my hair is so white. I spent 40 years as a partner in Close Perkins Howda Chartered Accountants. I basically semi-retired at the end of December 2015. I work now as a consultant for them. My wife Pat and I have between us 5 kids, 11 grandchildren, and 2 of our kids currently live in town, and 7 of our grandchildren. I have done over the years a good deal of volunteer service work. I was a member of the local Kinsman Club for 12 years, served on the Provincial Kinsman Foundation for 3 years. Probably one of the bigger jobs I took on, I was the finance chairman of West Central Event Center for 9 years. You think that wasn't fun? I got to deal with council from the other side. Trying to get it built. It was a huge project. I spent 20 years, basically, or almost 20 years, on the executive of the Junior Clipper Hockey Board. I served as president from 2009 to 2014, at which time I retired. I was also a member of the Kindersley Chamber of Commerce for 4 years and served as president for 1 year. I served on about 10 years on my provincial Association for Discipline and Professional Conduct, and received my FCA designation in 2001. My wife and I have both done a lot of work in this community. I want to continue to be able to do that. We have no intention of leaving here. This is our home, has been and will continue to be. I want to make this a better place for my kids, my grandkids, and everybody else in this community. So thank you very much.
Tom? 11 grandkids. Wow, that's a lot of grandkids. Anyway, my name's Tom Morris, and I want to be your mayor. I'm the current president of the Chamber of Commerce, president of the Hospitality Association. I'm the general manager of the Kindersley Inn, and as well as I'm a Rotarian, and I'd like to thank the Rotary Club of Kindersley as well as the Clarion for putting on this event, so thank you very much, you guys. I've always been told if you want to get a job done, get somebody that's busy to do it. I suppose I live by this. Some people ask, how could I be mayor with all the other stuff I have going on? Well, if elected as your mayor, I will be giving up all the other posts, except for my job at the Kindersley Inn, because I still have to save for my retirement, as well as my post as a Rotarian, which is a lifelong thing. Anyway, I have worked hard my entire life. It's my way of life, and I love it. And working hard is the ethic that I live by. I also live by certain values, which I carry with me everywhere I go, making sure that a deal is a win-win situation for everybody involved. It's important for me to have also a high level of respect for everybody that's around me. Maybe it's my hospitality upbringing, but I always strive to have positive energy, positive attitude, and I hope for positive outcomes all the way across the board. Let's face it, it's hard to develop positive anything from a negative situation. Negativity is like an animal of its own. It grows, and it takes some real powerful positive attitude in order to combat that. But it's the worst of us that lives in that negative animal. Hate, racism, bigotry, violence against women and children, and the inability to accept people for who they are and the differences they have from us. It consumes and is why I have a positive value system that makes me a champion of positive as far as I'm concerned and as far as a lot of people that know me. The question I'm asked most is, why do I want to run for mayor? My first answer is because I see some serious negativity living in our home, and I want to be the person who changes that to positive. I want the people around me to be happy where they live and to show the utmost respect for the neighbors that they have, and also for a respect for a place that we call Kindersley. I know I have the tools to help this along. It's how I'm geared. It's what I've been doing my entire life. I'm a good communicator, and I have the right values to get us there. Second, I'm a Rotarian. As a Rotarian, there's a very strong motto. It's service before self. I bring that to the table as well. Another reason for wanting me to be mayor, another reason for me wanting to be mayor is that I am somebody who has good ideas and I'm level-headed. I think on my feet fairly well, and I believe that this is a very important attribute to being a mayor. Hold on, stay calm. I think I'm good at that. But you better ask my wife just to make sure. Another question is, as mayor, what are you going to do for me? My answer is simple. Change me to we, and let's move this machine in a direction that's good for all of us. Let's communicate in a positive manner with each other. Let's get the goals that we're after together. Let's bring in those new businesses. Let's get some affordable housing. Let's bring funds from the provincial and federal governments that we don't get right now. And then let's sit down together and say, hey, job well done. A job well done for all of us and not just a few. So, this is who I am, this is what I stand for, and that's what I think that we need to do as a community to be the best that we can be. Not just for me, but for we. So, vote Morris for mayor, and if not, just get out and vote. It's your right and it's your choice. Thank you.
I have a question that was emailed in to me to present, and I wasn't sure whether to present it to the council candidates or the mayoral candidates, and I decided, because there were so many other questions I didn't get a chance, I'll give it to the mayors. And it kind of carries on with some of the comments that were said earlier about excess workers and things in town and the administration, but not directly in that respect. So the question that was sent here is, when social media attacks council and administration, what course of action would you take and what would you do about it? And I think we'll start with Rod.
I'm really not sure that council has any control over social media. And sometimes when I do look at it myself, I sometimes wonder why I'm looking at it, because in a lot of cases, there's people that aren't even from Kindersley that are doing all this commenting, and who knows where they're from. Certainly there's others that actually use their real names and comment, and I think that they have a valid points and valid arguments, and maybe it does point us somewhat as to the answers we should have, but I'm not totally convinced that social media is something that has to come into a decision-making process. It's an opinion thing, but what I would prefer instead of social media is sit across the desk from me, tell me your problems, and let me listen to them. And maybe I can come up with a solution. Working with the council and people in the administrative offices, I think a lot of things can be solved with communication, but I'm not sure that social media is the type of communication, especially, if we're talking Facebook, stuff like that. There's not enough identifiers there. Thank you.
Well, social media can be good, but boy, can it be bad. I think that sometimes when you take a look at some of the social media that is directly linked to Kindersley, sometimes we see some real bad. Now, recently there's been a bylaw that's been passed in Kindersley that deals with bullying and harassment. And to be quite honest, I think that what you're going to see in the very near future is the RCMP moving towards controlling that media a little better when it comes to things that would be out and out harassment of an individual and bullying of those individuals. If you watch the news, you know that this is happening now in schools and different places like that, and I can guarantee you that it's not going to be long before it's everywhere. We just do not have the right as a human being to attack another human being for no reason at all. And at the end of the day, it's unfortunate that social media becomes the judge, jury, and executioner of people's lives. Recently, there was an event that happened, and God forbid that if there is any reality to it, that this particular situation shouldn't be handled. But an individual was caught supposedly going to meet somebody that was an 11-year-old girl. That person's life was totally destroyed, and it should be, if that's the case. There's been no proof that that individual was there to meet an 11-year-old girl. There's been no proof that anything happened. And when somebody went to defend that individual, his life was destroyed as well. Judge, jury, and executioner cannot happen on social media. We need the facts and we need them in place so that it's a real situation that we know how to control, and the RCMP are the people that control that. Thank you.
I guess this next question I have, it's kind of a two-part question. Do you think our economic development initiatives in Kindersley are working? And then secondly, what more does Kindersley have to do to attract economic development? And we'll start with you, Tom.
Well, economic development is got many layers to it. But I think one of the things, and I met with an individual for lunch the other day, and he'd indicated to me, why is it that we're only 5,000 people? And actually, I think by healthcare cards, we're 5,417 actually. But with that being said, I don't really know what the answer for that is, as far as why we're not further ahead economically in a developmental standpoint. And I think part of it is that we need to get to those businesses that are in Calgary that are doing business here and say, hey, listen, why isn't your office here? This is where the action is. Why aren't you going to be centering your activities in Kindersley? if I'm elected mayor, that is one of the things that I will be doing for sure, is I want to go to Calgary. I want to sit down with these CEOs and I want to make a pitch to them to say, listen, Kindersley is where you need to be. That's where the action is. Right now, Kindersley is the #1 spot in Canada for oil. Absolutely. There's nowhere that's more aggressive than we are. But you know what? You tell people that from outside of Kindersley and they just don't believe it. But I know I belong to a hotel chain. Our hotel here is the most vibrant and has seen the biggest increases in the last 3 months because of the activity that's going on in Kindersley. So, economic development, #1, let's get to the source of the people that have the ability to develop.
I think economic development is huge. Many years ago, I lived in Lloydminster, Saskatchewan. And at that time, I moved down to Kindersley here and started my work as a CA student. In 1969, the population of Lloydminster was 6,000. I think Kindersley probably at the time was about 4,500. We fast forward 45 years or whatever it is, 48 years, 47 years. Lloydminster's got a 3 in front of their 6, so they're 36,000. We're still fighting for 5,000. I think a lot of it, may have been their location on the Alberta-Saskatchewan border, which Alberta boomed for a lot of years, but it isn't anymore. I think that we certainly maybe missed the boat on some stuff earlier that could have been changed, but I think right now we have to get a council and a mayor that will go out, as Tom said. I don't know whether I'm not totally convinced you can convince oil companies to set up here.
Norman Ritchie Center,
Years ago when I was president of the Chamber of Commerce, one day, for the lack of anything better to do, I phoned up the president of Calfrac because I'd seen about 15 of their trucks sitting around Kindersley and said, hey, why don't you open up an office here? And surprisingly enough, he didn't tell me to go to hell. He said, hey, I wish you'd have called 6 months earlier because we just spent a bunch of money in Brooks, but maybe we should have spent it in Kindersley. And I said, well, next time. But I think there are opportunities to invite businesses here. I think we have to create an atmosphere that makes them want to come here. And we've touched it a lot with the council candidates on taxes, services, et cetera. All of that has to be part of the package in order to convince businesses to move here. There are a few things that I would like to see in my tenure if I'm lucky enough to be there. I would like to set a goal of increasing the population by 100 households over 4 years.
I'll have to kind of stop you there, Rod. Yeah. Okay. So there's been much that has been said about the overstaffing or overspending by the town. Do you see these as issues? And if so, do you have any ideas on how you might work towards addressing those? And I guess we'll start with you, Rod.
I think it's an issue. I'm not sure of the answer to the issue at this time. I think it's premature to sit here and say this has to change, that has to change until such time as we sit down and look at it. I will say that I'm not a huge fan of the Carver system of governance. I think it has added a few layers that do have a direct cost. I don't really want to jump into stuff and scare people as far as jobs or anything. I think that there's a human aspect to this too you have to look at. But I think we have to become more efficient. Taxes are probably at just about a tolerance level that they can't go any higher. So really, as a person who's counted numbers all his life, there's two things you can do. You can change revenue or you can lower expenses. I guess what we're saying is the revenue, tax revenue is pretty much as high as we could expect to have it for the time being unless we get new business and grow it. So therefore, you do have to take a long, hard look at expenses. I think I have the experience to do that as a CPA. not only salaries, you have to look at a whole bunch of economies. There's many, many line items on a budget, and salaries aren't the only one by any stretch of the imagination. So you have to look, it's a tough road. You've got to supply the services that people want, but you have to be able to operate in an environment where they can afford to live here too. I think that message came out quite clearly when we were talking to the councillors on that very subject. So yes, I think that there will be some review of this, but I don't think it's something that I'm prepared to come out and say, yes, this is going to get cut and that's going to get cut. Thank you.
Well, and I agree with Rod, is that, until you're in it, it's pretty hard to make an absolute statement as to the direction that you're going to go. I do know one thing for sure, and that is the company that I'm involved with has probably seen the worst economic times that it's ever seen in its history. Last April, I was instructed that we had to start doing layoffs because the volumes were down, and at that time we employed probably pretty close to 100 employees. Right now we employ pretty close to 60. So that tells you what we had to do. And we had to do it because if we didn't do it, we wouldn't be here today. And business is pretty simple, and make no mistake, being a town or a city is a business. That's what it is. But you do have to look at the whole picture. Because while I was making cuts, I had people that didn't know anything about what was going on our particular situation saying, well, can't you run with one server for the lounge, the restaurant, and the bar? Well, my God, how could you ever do that and have any service whatsoever? And it's the same thing in the business that we're talking about right now. Before we decide to go to start slashing or take the axe and start cutting people, let's really see what's going on and see what those individuals do every day. If there's some dead wood, of course we need to address that. But when people become a councillor or they become a mayor, they're involved in a budgetary process. That process is based on here's what we have coming in, here's what we can have going out. And at the end of the day, I don't think it's anybody's intention to sit there and actually monitor every nickel when you are paying people to monitor that for you. So you have to be smart about how you do it as a businessman. You can't think that you're going to be able to do it all yourself, because you can't. So again, before I would go in and make any cuts, I'd really have to have a clear understanding of what each and every individual was doing that possibly might be in a position that would need to be cut. Thank you.
So should city status continue to be a priority? What's your thoughts on that? We'll start with you, Tom.
I'm a big believer in being a city. Absolutely. I would like to see Kindersley get to 7,000 people real quick. Of course, there's things that we need to do in order to get there. But being a city does a lot of different things for us. Number one, it enables us to take the existing tax brackets that we have right now, which are 3, and break them into many different categories. So while we're talking about commercial, everybody that is in the commercial business right now pays a certain tax rate, that's it. If you're a city, you're able to take that tax base and spread it over, let's say, a C1, C2, C3, C4 scenario, which means that now we can be a little bit more fair with it and possibly say to the smaller guy, you don't have to pay as much. You're not highway frontage, you don't have to pay as much. You're in an industrial zone where there's no paved roads, you don't have to pay as much. But as a town, we're not able to do that. So from a tax standpoint, it only makes sense that we want to become a city because it levels the playing field for the small guy. Also, being a city, I can tell you this, if we were a city and you went to knock on Calfrac's door, they're going to think twice if you're just a town. And not that being a town is a bad thing, it's just a perception. And these businesses, they won't come here as quickly if we're not a city. And that's just a fact. I've talked to different businesses in the past, and they really believe that being a city means something. I do too. I think that if we live in a city, it's just something that's a little more attractive to the people that are thinking of moving someplace. You can take a look at what's happened in Saskatoon and in Regina. A lot of the people that have moved away from the farm have gravitated to cities. Not as much to towns. As a matter of fact, towns in Saskatchewan, many of them are dying. So I think the quicker that we become a city, the better off it will be for all of us.
Yes, I'm definitely in favor of becoming a city. I sincerely hope that our population numbers, when the census comes out in early 2017, gives us the numbers that we need to look for in order to reapply. I'm not sure why we applied before the census numbers come out. I think that probably the reason was that everybody was pretty confident those health numbers were correct, and maybe they were. It didn't look to me like we got a very adequate explanation from the provincial government as to why we were turned down. In talking to one individual I know who's involved in politics a bit, he said, I asked him, what is the difference between being a town and a city? And he said, long and short of it, when you go to a convention or anything, you're sitting among 17 if you're a city. You might be 117 if you're a town, and the money gets divvied up differently, grant-wise and everything else. So I think there is a huge advantage to becoming a city. I agree with Tom. To attract people, to say you're a city, I think you're going to get people more anxious to move here. And secondly, I think you're going to get businesses that will take a long, hard look at the newest city in Saskatchewan, as opposed to the town of Kindersley, which has been that for 40 or 50 or 60 years. So I think there is an advantage, definitely. Tax-wise, there are a little more flexibility. I think we're still going to be limited on how much we can do that, but the perception is a huge thing in society, really, even. So I think the perception of being a city has definitely got to add to the appeal of Kindersley. Thank you.
I want to encourage anybody that has any questions to come up. The only reason I'm asking questions is because there was nobody standing at the mics. Go ahead, please.
I'm Catherine Sawatsky. I'm a student at KCS.
Ritchie
My
Center,
question is, what are
room
your
tone,
thoughts on getting the youth involved and engaged in the community?
Definitely. I mean, the youth are the future people that are sitting up here running for mayors, councilors, and everything else. I think that, we talked about crime back an hour or so ago. We need to engage with youth, see what needs to be done to give you more to do. I think Barry Andrew put it fairly bluntly and said that there are lots of things to do, but you have to encourage that. You have to work with youth so that those youth who are encouraged or want to be involved with the political process, any type of governance, are encouraged, and perhaps they can lead their peers to becoming better citizens of this community. It's huge, and I think that having a whole bunch of youths in my family right now, you can see that kids will, if they're given the opportunity, step up to the plate and do things. I know that they've had the Junior Citizens of Council there for the past number of years. I think Mayor Enswins was pretty instrumental in doing that. You learn how to do things, you learn how to deal with situations which you can take back to your public school, your high schools, and become leaders. And that is important. I think that young leaders are the futures of tomorrow, so yes, definitely, I think you should.
Well, I'm absolutely in agreement of having youth involved in anything. I have a 16-year-old granddaughter, and she's way smarter than I am. I guess one of the things is that when it comes down to it, having youth involved in decision-making is a good idea. And I think that the town of Kindersley has done a pretty decent job of having youth involved in what it takes to be a future politician in the future. So I think that's a good thing. I know that our Rotary Club is very involved with youth. They are building schools in Tanzania, water wells in the Dominican Republic. They're fundraising like crazy. They're out there. They're doing stuff. And so I think that as a council and as a mayor, It's very important that we structure something so that we have that avenue to have direct connection with our youth that'll be able to give us ideas that we don't have. We don't know everything. And at the end of the day, it's always important that we listen to as many people as possible. And why wouldn't we listen to youth? Absolutely, it's important. Thanks.
I've got, I guess, one final question that I've got here, and it kind of touches on something that Rod started on to when I interrupted him earlier, and had asked it of the candidates for council as well. So what are the two most important things that you want to see happen during your tenure for the betterment of the community and moving the town forward? And we'll start with you, Tom.
Number one for me is to open up lines of communication with the citizens of Kindersley on a regular basis so that you can tell us what we're doing wrong. I think that positive communication has been lacking, and I think it needs to get back to that, where we listen to the citizens before we develop plans without their input. Now, I'm not exactly sure which avenue is the best. I know that the town council of today has definitely gone ahead. They've done a lot in regards to communication. They have a communication person. They've done a lot of stuff with social media. They've tried to get the messages out. The way I see it, and it's way better to sit down for a coffee face-to-face to make those connections than it is through social media. That's my belief. But I think that in order for us to move forward in a positive direction of communication, we have to exercise all options. I think the newspaper, Kindersley is a newspaper reading town. And I think it's important that as a council, that we have all the information that we have readily available to everybody. That's social media, that's the coffee shop rags that are out there, that's the newspaper that is in place, and possibly both newspapers. But we have to try harder to get the message out. And throwing our arms up and just going, well, they just don't listen. That's not good enough. We have to find a way that's good for you to tell us what we're doing wrong. So, number one, communication. Number two, affordable housing. In order for us to get to an area where economic development makes sense, we have to have affordable housing. And I'm sorry, but $350,000 for a starter home for a new family is not affordable housing. It doesn't work that way. The way it works is that we're able to give the people that are going to be coming to town housing that they can live on with the wages that they make. And we're not there. So those are the two important things I'd look at.
Well, I might have 2.5, Monty. I guess to carry on what I was talking about there, I would like to set a 4-year goal to put 100 new net homes in this community. I mean, we have the land now. We just have to figure out how to get these people here. Obviously, to get them here, we probably have to bring a couple or 3 businesses in. I would love to see a big Canadian Tire here. We had one for many, many years, but it was small and inefficient, and for one reason or another closed, so it would be lovely to get that back. With the current situation on grocery stores, obviously I think that we need to be looking at another one coming in. I would hope that I have heard some rumors that it's being looked at, so that to me is quite important. Together with that, if you're going to attract people, I think you have to build a pool, one way or the other. And I'm not going to sit here and say that we need a $8 million or $12 million indoor pool. We need a pool. Simple. And the second, probably most important thing that I think that needs to be done is to repair what I feel is a real disconnect between the public, the council, the administration, the rural municipalities. It just seems like there's a lot of, I don't know what you call it, anger or dissatisfaction of people wanting a change, that are not happy with the way things are. And I think that a new council and mayor has to work towards correcting this communication, whether it's communication, lack of communication, or not enough. I don't know that yet, but I think that it all has to be taken into factor so that we can all get along and we can make this community grow and prosper. Thank you very much.
Is there anybody else that has any questions at all? There we go.
I'll try her. As a business owner since 2002, I have a business in the industrial area. And, well, I worked there since 91, but the roads are terrible in the industrial area. And I've phoned town council and asked, when's the next time a grader's going to come by? And they said, well, I'll put in a request. I don't want a request. I want the grader. Like, can we not send somebody to school to run a patrol? I'm sure there's schools out there that do that for heavy equipment operators. And I'd like to know how much money is generated from taxes out there and how much is spent out there. And it doesn't look like very much is spent out there.
I'm not sure what the question is, sorry.
What's the town council, are they going to improve the road situation out there? That's what I'm asking.
Okay, Rod, if you can.
You're right, Rob. I drove out there the other day to visit with you. I just about lost a wheel. It would seem to me that there's really no reason why we couldn't run a grader on a regular basis. If we own them, they should be used. And there aren't that many roads and alleys that are non-paved that it would be that huge a project. I know behind our office, we had a water main break a few years back. We have a crater back there, and every once in a while we have to phone the town and say, could you please run a grader over there because we're going to lose a vehicle in there pretty quick. And they have responded by doing it, so I think that maybe it's a matter of educating the Public Works Department to take care of some of this stuff. I drove out all through through the industrial area last week, and you're 100% right. The guys up at the top got a pretty good deal going, but down where you are, it needs some work, and it isn't a huge job to run a grader over a road and take out a few of the corduroy bumps and holes, and perhaps even a little gravel occasionally wouldn't be a bad application. So if I am elected mayor, I think that's the important thing. You have to listen to people who are paying the taxes out there that need some services. I mean, your tax dollar is every bit as good as everybody else's. And I mean, if we can clean the snow on Main Street for the Main Street businesses, we should be able to run a grader down 11th Avenue or whatever it is out there to straighten the roads out. I agree, totally. Thank you.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's a common question, and I can tell you that there's a lot of people that have asked the same darn question. When are we going to get the industrial zone fixed up a little bit? There's an awful lot of tax money that comes out of that area, and it is unfortunate that I don't think that you get your fair shake. There's also comment that we have a storm management problem out there as well. And I think that the answer to that, if we're going to take a look at doing a 10-year plan in regards to infrastructure, I think it should include proper storm management, proper roads, possibly paved, whatever we need to do to make that work. But at the end of the day, you know what? You got to have a plan for it first. And I think that's one of the things I'll do if I was mayor, is I'd make sure that's part of the community plan moving forward, is let's correct that, because you can't have proper storm management when all you got is ruts. That doesn't work. At least there should be a consistent, and I say consistent, upgrade of those roads moving forward for sure.
Anybody else with a question? I don't see so. All right, I want to thank both Rod and Tom for coming out and talking with us. Ladies and gentlemen, these are your candidates for mayor.
And one more thing, folks, make sure you get out and vote.
So yes, just want to remind everybody, and thank you very much for coming out this evening. Remind everybody that there are advance polls starting tomorrow, and then the actual voting is on the 26th of October. If you don't vote, you don't really get a say in what's happening. Thank you again for coming out.
One more thing, folks, please give Monty a big round of applause. He did a great job.